Hello and welcome to the MLB DFS on the RotoRadar Podcast. My name is Joshua Riemer. I'm joined by none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Jared Block. Jared, how are you doing on this fine Friday afternoon?
Doing well, man. Happy Friday to everybody. We had an awesome NFL draft night last night. I know that you really didn't get to participate in that, but hopefully you get to do more this weekend.
Yes.
In terms of that, Thursday's MLB slate was kind of let's just recoup and move on to the next one kind of situation. Kyle Gibson definitely underperformed, and until late, so did the Orioles. So it's kind of how last night's slate went. But yeah, I'm willing to move on and look at this one now and with a fresh look.
Yes, sir. Exactly. That's sometimes what happens with those 5-game slates. You get some bad variance, and then your night's over. There's not much recovering from it. So that's what you had last night. Tonight we have a loaded slate, plenty of games to talk about, some rain concerns as well that we'll get into. But excited to get into it with you here.
Yep, absolutely. Today's slate's going to lock at 7:05. May end up being 7:07. We'll see. But I just want to at least mention that most of the rain is in the early games or games that just aren't on the main slate. There are some weather spots, and we'll start talking about this first one. It is going to be Pittsburgh and Washington. Right now, the Pirates are a -142 road favorite behind Rich Hill. Chad Kuhl +120 at home for the Nationals. 8.5 is the total. Man, would I love to talk about this game more in depth, but I think we're going to get a postponement pretty quickly. But it would have been an awesome game to take a look at, even despite, it's just not going to be a game because of weather.
We actually just got that news right now that this game will be postponed.
Official?
Yeah, official. So, this game wasn't going to play. It's really bad rain and thunderstorms and all that jazz. So we can just move on to this next one.
Yep. Let's go ahead and move it on. The slate's actually going to start at 7:07 with this Guardians and Boston Red Sox game. So right now the Guardians are coming in as a -126 money line favorite behind Shane Bieber. The Red Sox coming in as a +108 money line underdog behind Pivetta. 9 is the total for this game. And just to start things out for weather-wise, we do have a situation where there's wind blowing in at Fenway, but obviously a lot more clear of a situation. Temperatures around the 50-degree mark. So we have lots of top-tier pitching options today. We have DeGrom on the slate. We have Castillo, Valdez, Shane Bieber, and then we also have some of these other spots. But yeah, let's talk about this Boston situation. It does feel like a step up in terms of allowing or not really, having that right field fence be an issue with Bieber here. But he has looked, just to put it frankly, horrible to start the year just based on Shane Bieber's past. So will he turn it around here, or is it going to be a struggle all year?
I don't know if it'll be a struggle all year. I think it certainly will be a struggle here. I mean, some of these matchups make sense, like the Nationals matchup makes sense. He wasn't able to get a lot of strikeouts. Yankees, decent team, makes sense that he wasn't able to get a lot of strikeouts. That's Miami start is kind of a conundrum to me. But I think this could be another struggle spot. This Boston team has some really good hitting up and down the lineup. Lots of lefties that are going to face off against them that should have some success. And you're also in Fenway, one of the most hitter-friendly parks in baseball. So it's going to be hard for Shane Bieber to really get going here. And I don't have a lot of interest in the spot.
Yeah, we're going to have to pick and choose our spots, obviously, with 20 teams on the slate, maybe even 18, depending on the Mets game. Just have to pick and choose, and it's fairly easy to do that today. So on the other side, Boston's going to get a matchup where I think, I don't really love the Pivetta situation either way. And the wind blowing in doesn't really set up for massive success. Pivetta, after a rocky start against the Angels, came back and had a really good outing against the Brewers. So what are we doing with this game? Or are we just kind of staying away from it?
I think I'm for the most part staying away from it. I don't really have a lot of interest. I know Pivetta isn't the best, but I don't get really excited about targeting any of these Cleveland hitters, to be fully honest with you. Both of these guys, like, while they have been worse than what we expected, they're still decent enough. Like, the xFIP is sub 5. Pivetta has a good K rate. Bieber's K rate should pick up at some point. I don't know. It's not a spot on such a large slate. On like a 5-gamer like last night, I would probably say you can find ways to attack Shane. You can definitely find ways to attack Pivetta, maybe with some of these lefties in the lineup. But I don't think you can do it on such a large slate. One guy that I do really like, Jose Ramirez, sets up really well, pitch type wise, in terms of Pivetta being pretty heavily split to lefties, and Jose Ramirez not really striking out to lefty or to righties. It could work out really well for Ramirez here.
Yeah, don't mind it. Again, I think we can actually. I mean, is there a prop number that you like here? I don't really think he's being considered for DFS. More of a tournament flyer option. So if you like something, go ahead and share it.
Yeah, I don't think he's even on the board today. Is the sad part.
Mm.
Let me see.
Okay.
Yeah, not even on the board today. So, here, let me double check that before I just say it. Oh, he is on the board. I just missed I misspelled part of his name. 8-hitter fantasy score. I can get behind that. Pivetta, you definitely have the steal potential here. So I don't mind going 8-hitter fantasy score if you're going to go anything. But even that, I mean, 5 pick at best.
Right. Okay. Let's go ahead and circle back to the game that I skipped over and talk about the Seattle and Toronto spot. That's most likely going to start the DFS slates. So right now, the Seattle Mariners are coming in as the minus 108, basically even odds here on the road behind Luis Castillo. The Blue Jays, Alek Manoah, same thing, minus 108 home favorite. Well, I guess not really favorite. 8.5 is the total for this game. Had a question from Christian. Thank you for commenting and joining the show. We're just going to start off right away with what he said, bringing up Castillo in this spot. Says Castillo fantasy absolutely diced the Jays in the playoffs last year. If he can give 6 solid innings, and even if he hooks fantasy with a quality start, I see him clearly clearing the fantasy number pretty easy today. We'll get to the exact number there, but let's just go ahead and break down the Castillo spot against what should be a pretty right-handed heavy Blue Jays team.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I get all that excited about it. This Blue Jays team, pretty classically reverse splits. Like, a lot of these righties do well against right-handed pitchers. So, I don't know. He could have a good performance here. Don't get me wrong. It's just the thing for me is I'd wonder, one, are those performances in Petco, or not Petco, whatever that Mariners Park is called, because very pitcher-friendly, probably helped him out quite a bit. Two, this Toronto team wasn't nearly as good against righties last year. So, I don't know. The K rate is meh. They're at like 21% on the season against right-handed pitchers. I think his fantasy score number is pretty low at 31.5. Like, if we're talking about specific numbers, putting him at 31.5 seems pretty low at the end of the day. I don't know. I just go back and forth on whether he's really going to cover that in such a tough matchup.
Yeah, I mean, the K rates of righties this year for Castillo's at 36% now. Obviously, you take that with a grain of salt when you're dealing with Toronto and a team that is above average in this position. So he's saying that the game was in Toronto.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that there's ways that I worry about the win, and that's going to be a big thing for that fantasy score number. That would
In
be
Toronto?
Win. Sorry, WIN.
Win. Gotcha. I thought you said win. And I was like, there's no win there, dog.
There will be a lot of win today. That's not a place that will. So
yeah.
I worry about the fact that there's no clear favorite here. So
Yeah.
you're kind of rolling the dice on that too. But
For sure.
I do think that if anything, he'll get up for this spot. So I don't mind it. It wouldn't be my favorite. It would be something where I would use your Flex Friday to try to make that happen.
Yes, sir. Exactly. I completely agree there. Probably better at a 6-pick or a 5-pick type play, but not necessarily something that I would lock in for a 2-pick.
As far as other things on this slate, I'm not super interested in rostering Toronto. Just think that there are better clear spots on the slate. And obviously we have Coors. We didn't even mention that yet, but that's going to be a big thing today, as well as a few other spots. As far as anything else goes, we can at least break down the spot for Alek Manoah this season, having a rough start to it. The xFIP super low, or super high, excuse me, at 6.36. The xFIP, or the K rate, excuse me, is low compared to his season numbers and giving up a lot of hard contact to lefties. And that's a pretty big sample size as well, over 130 or 120 plate appearances. So what can we look at for the Seattle Mariners? Are they more of just a team that we could exploit some props in, or with them being, pretty right-handed heavy at the top of the lineup, is it just going to be a spot where maybe Alek Manoah does get back to what he was doing last year?
I don't think he's going to get back I think there's some fundamental problems with how he's doing things so far. I mean, a 6.36 xFIP doesn't indicate any improvement regression-wise. His BABIP is actually low at 269, so, like, there's not much life in the positive regression range for Alek Manoah as of right now. I think that this Seattle team should be able to hit him pretty well here. I couldn't give you one guy that I really like because I don't think there's anyone that I really can get behind. If you wanted to go to Kalinick, I don't mind that. Like low
That
K.
would be the one guy I was going to say.
Yeah, Manoah with the low K rate, that could really work out for Kalinick here. Outside of that, like maybe a Julio Rodriguez spot, but I don't know. You're looking at a very GPP stack, or at the best case, a one-off probably.
Yeah, no reason to force stuff on today's slate. Really isn't.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and move on. We got a big Friday, so we got to keep moving. Right now, we're going to focus on this Tampa Bay Chicago White Sox game next. The Rays are coming in as a -158 money line favorite here behind Zach Eflin. Giolito gets the bump for the White Sox, +134 at home. 8.5 is the total for this game. Weather, just got to bring it up here. Actually looks pretty good in Chicago, 54 degrees. Winds blowing out towards the right at guaranteed rate, making this a little bit more of a less of a pitcher-friendly environment than it normally would be. Let's start by saying, I know we don't have time to go off on tangents here, but have you seen the epic video rant of the Chicago White Sox fan yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay. After this is over, guys, go ahead, type in on Twitter, TikTok, wherever, Instagram, go search White Sox fan, because it's one of the most epic rants about how the team has been completely miserable like the last 6+ years, and they're already, his big thing was like they're 10 games under 500 for the last time, or for the first like 3 weeks already. It took them 3 weeks, while it took the Bears like 11 weeks to be 11 games under 500. So anyway, he went on a huge rant here. The Rays absolutely stomped the White Sox yesterday too, and Dylan Cease. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun one to talk about.
Is it something that the stream can watch? I have it pulled up here. I'd love to give a live reaction.
I don't think we're gonna. I mean, the only thing we won't have any copyright issues or anything like that. So
yeah, okay. It's the one from ESPN Chicago, right?
Yeah, it's pretty long, so you might not have to play the whole thing, but it is really funny for like 30 seconds.
All right, we'll play it here. Oh, it's 7 minutes.
Yeah, just play like the first 30 seconds.
Okay,
you get the idea.
Yeah.
Sharing my deep and undying love for this team, and my call is rooted in heartbreak, not anger. Don't get me wrong, I'm angry, but it is a byproduct of a dysfunctional, abusive relationship with the front office and the ownership of the Chicago White Sox. I also want to say,
yeah, you can get the gist just from the beginning of it. Definitely an upset fan, and rightfully so. This is not going to be a good weekend for him as he continues to watch his Rays team dominate here, because it's another good spot for them in the spot against Lucas Giolito, who just hasn't had the stuff quite yet so far this year. 5.2 xFIP. The numbers look okay, but his fly ball rate is really what's inducing this. It's a lot of he's not getting ground balls basically at all. The hard contact is decently high. I like lefties in this spot, especially with the wind blowing out right now. You can get guys like Brandon Lowe, Josh Lowe, Wander Franco. They're going to be some expensive bats here, but I think they're solid bats at that. Why is Josh Lowe 4K on FanDuel? I need to know that first.
Yeah, it's insane. Brandon Lowe hit 2 home runs last night. And yeah, it's just going to be a spot where I don't think many people will prioritize this. Maybe they do. Obviously, you have to kind of find your second and third teams in DFS, and maybe even in the prop market instead of loading up on course. But this is going to be a spot where I think that we find a little bit lower ownership just because of price tags for DFS purposes. So I don't know. Maybe it works out to where the price tags don't really do it for you, and you want to focus on more like individual prop plays. But I think you can qualify the Rays as a top 5 option today.
You're getting some really cheap price tags over on DraftKings. So for the people up, we'll have DraftKings and FanDuel, and I'll switch back and forth between them as we talk through this. But Brandon Lowe at 4,800, Josh Lowe at 4,400. Wander Franco is obviously going to be one of the more expensive pieces of the lineup, but like, I like getting some exposure to this team today. I'll talk about why, like, Coors is good. It's Coors, right? But you have the wind blowing in. It's pretty cold in Coors today. So, like, there's definitely reasons to not love the spot, too. If you're looking for that third team, if you're looking for a team to potentially get really different with in tournaments as your main stack, this Tampa Bay team definitely provides that upside. And the away bonus and the fact that the White Sox bullpen is pretty trash right now. I think that I really do like the upside that Tampa Bay brings to the table today.
Yeah, and again, like we mentioned yesterday, they got smoked last night, so you're probably going to see a tired pen there, and they're going to ask Giolito to go more than 6 innings. It's probably not going to work out there for you.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't have any props up for Tampa Bay. I know we'll get
what
to
is
Chicago
that?
here in a second, but I would hold off a little bit and wait if you can. If you've already played some things, that's fine. But if you're really interested in looking more, I would just hold out a little bit longer to try to find something. Not too many lefties on underdog either, but maybe it's a good opportunity to head over to sleeper picks and go ahead and do that because I know you can find them there. Let's talk about the Zach Eflin spot going up against Chicago. It's going to be a right-handed pitcher going up against this Tampa Bay team. I know that the same weather applies to him, but this season's got a 3.13 xFIP. The strikeout rate is around 25% to both handedness. You're going to find a spot where the ISO against righties has been pretty elite to start the year. Have struggled against lefties a little bit more. Still has a pretty good ground ball rate to that handedness, but is there anything we can take a look at for this White Sox team, or maybe even pitching Eflin?
I would say no. I don't mind pitching Eflin. The main problem with the fact of pitching Eflin is that he hasn't been going very deep into these games. Hasn't gone over 84 pitches so far this year. So, like, the fact you're paying $10K for a guy that does not carry a lot of upside because of the fact he's not going deep is really concerning. I'd stay away from the spot, but I believe in Eflin. I believe in this bullpen. I wouldn't take any bats against him either.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stay away from it today. If you had a longer leash, maybe we'd be considering it, but I think that
it would
the
be.
Rays.
I think he'd be one of the best plays on the board if I knew he was going to go 100 pitches today, but you don't know that.
That's definitely just more on the Rays as an organization. So
yeah, for sure.
All right, let's keep chugging along here. Move on to the next one. Again, if we find Tampa props on the board, maybe later towards the end of the show, we'll talk about them. But keep an eye on those if you find any lefties there. Atlanta and the New York Mets game is next. I will read the odds and then we'll talk about whether this game plays or not. Braves minus 136 behind Max Fried. Peterson Mets plus 116 at home. 7.5 is the total. It was already going to be a really insane pitcher duel against these NL East teams, and now you get the whole rain spot, very, very similar to the Washington rain spot. So if they postponed, Washington's definitely more of a quick trigger postponement system. But I do think that this being an NL East game, that they'll find ways to make it up this weekend. So I'm pretty sure this game's not going to play either.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. They have opportunities to make it up this weekend. You have, obviously the weekend series, but these teams play against each other quite a bit. So, I think they find a way to make this one up. We'll kind of have a better idea, according to Roth, pregame. If they have a tarp out, it means they're not going to play because they can't late start this one. They've got to start on time if they want any chance of getting 5 innings, because it's only going to get progressively worse as they get through the night. So, you have one or two options. Either they don't start and then they're not going to play, or they try to start on time and try to force those innings. But even if they force those innings, they're not getting deeper than 6, most likely.
Yep, I agree there. And they're probably they could, in theory, I guess, if the game goes fast with the new rules, maybe they end up, I don't know, playing 5 because that's all they need to play, right? That's all they would need to do.
No,
I don't know. It's still though. You're not. It's not a friendly fantasy or prop environment there.
For sure.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on here. We don't have much to discuss in terms of weather for the rest of the slate, hopefully, outside of some wind stuff. But let's go ahead and move on here. Talk about the next game, which is going to be the New York Yankees and Texas Rangers. Right now, the Yankees are coming in as a plus 190 underdog behind Schmidt. Jacob deGrom on the mound for the Rangers, a minus 230 home favorite. 7 is the total. We should expect the roof to be closed for this game, and so it should be playing just fine. Let's start with the Yankees here. We targeted them a lot yesterday, and I feel like obviously today is probably a spot to kind of pull back the reins a little bit outside of one player that I want to bring up.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in any of these players. I think deGrom mows down this lineup. Most likely Aaron Judge not going to be in the lineup with that hip injury that he had last night, so no Judge. deGrom's been electric so far this year. I think it's pretty simple. I think you play deGrom tonight, and you just don't, in cash at least, you just force in deGrom and call it a day.
Yep. There's only one guy who's had his number. Do you know who it is?
Is it Rizzo? I don't think it is Rizzo, but
It is Rizzo.
oh, there you go.
Yeah, 11 for 27. So hitting 400. Not the best, obviously, but 9 singles, 1 double, 1 home run, 2 walks. So it's been a pretty interesting battle. Not enough for us to get off the DeGrom spot at all. So
Yeah.
yeah, that would be that. Although I have him in my BVP article today, just because I liked what the Storks told us, and I know it's a terrible spot, but with that comes also the fact that Prize Picks gave him a 5-hitter fantasy score, so
Yeah.
it's
Wow.
pretty low.
That is really low.
Yeah, so it's kind of where I'm interested in that, but again, we'll get there when we get there in terms of props. Yeah, Jacob DeGrom, best pitcher on the board. It's really not close. Can you even make cases point per dollar that somebody's better?
I think Stroman's, or no, not Stroman. No, I don't think so. I don't think anyone gets nearly as good as this spot, in all honesty.
Yep, I agree with you there, and the win should be in a good spot for him today. So let's talk about these Rangers bats going up against Schmidt here. Obviously, you're not going to find the Rangers with a high team total today. So kind of talk to me about what Schmidt brings to the table and give us your Yankees insight there.
Yeah, so I mean, Schmidt's been pretty good this year. 4x FIP. Her K rate's been solid. Walk rate stuff has been good. Garrett Cole kind of took him. The whole storyline before the season was Garrett Cole took him under his wing and kind of wanted to teach him a lot. And you can kind of see it playing out in his game, right? The swing stuff has been heavy. It's kind of following exactly what you would see from a Garrett Cole light almost, with giving up a decent chunk of power, not getting a lot of ground balls, but still getting good outs. He's really struggling against lefties, though, and I think that could be a big struggle coming into today's game when you have to face off against guys like Lowe and Janikowski up in top of the lineup. So I don't mind a mini stack here, actually, of Texas. I think the lefties should end up getting to Schmidt at some point here. If I'm targeting one, it's probably going to be Nathaniel Lowe first in that 3-hole spot. But that's about it. I wouldn't go too gung-ho heavy on this Rangers team.
Yeah, I'm probably just fine with playing DeGrom. I think that you're kind of reaching. I think there's really only like 6 offenses that I'm really, really interested in today. And maybe, yeah, I don't know. They're just not going to be one of them.
For sure. I understand that.
Okay. Let's talk about props for this game. Like I mentioned, Rizzo is the only thing I'm interested in, just purely from a data perspective and the fact that there's a low number. Let's talk about DeGrom though, and would you want to roster anything with him? Like the fantasy score number is 46.5, pitcher strikeouts numbers at 9. That's pretty much it. I mean, I wouldn't touch the other stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I like both pitcher fantasy score and pitcher strikeout. I think the win is more secure than that minus 190 really gives it, in all honesty. I feel like there's a good chance that the Rangers win here. So I'd probably lean pitcher fantasy score if I'm going to go anywhere.
Yeah, that money line number is up at 230 now. So maybe that's been adjusted.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on though. Talk about the next game is going to be the LA Angels and the Milwaukee Brewers. Right now, the Angels are coming in as a plus 110 underdog behind Tyler Anderson. Wade Miley on the mound for the Brewers. Southpaw versus Southpaw. Minus 130 at home. 9 is the total here. Hard to tell whether or not the Brewers are going to open the roof here. It is in the 50s today. I would assume. I can obviously call the hotline later and figure it out, but I would assume they probably close it because I think there's rain coming tonight. But anyway, regardless, I think this is a spot where you can target both offenses here. So let's start off with the Angels coming in against Wade Miley. There's some serious BVP here. I think that obviously the only thing we need to really take focus on right away is the fact that Miley not really going to be a strikeout guy. He's going to try to get you out with the ground ball rate. This season, the ground ball rate really hasn't taken form just yet. I think it will over time, but I think that the righties in this lineup, some of the bigger names, can be in some really good spots here.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind going here. I like Hunter Renfroe. I kind of like more towards the bottom of this lineup where you're getting Renfroe, Drury, Rengifo, Neto at the bottom of the lineup as well. Even Wallach if you want a cheap catcher option. I like some of these bottom end bats. I mean, you're gonna have to pay up for those Rays, in my opinion. So if you are considering this Angels team, I'm not sure you have all that much room for a guy like Trout or like Taylor Ward or even an Ohtani. I think the Trout spot might be a little bit tough. I know he's 1 for 12 lifetime against Miley, so that BVP definitely not working in his favor.
Yeah, no, it isn't. And honestly, Trout has been underperforming. I know he had a home run a couple days ago, but outside of that, they've been in some really good spots, and he's kind of disappointed. I believe he went over or 0 for 5 yesterday. Um, anyway, though, he can always turn it back on. The main guy that I want to, or main two guys I actually want to focus on here are guys that have seen him well in the past, and those guys are Anthony Rendon and Brandon Drury, who's been on fire this week. So those are some of the plays that I want, and obviously the narrative of Hunter Renfroe coming back and hitting in Milwaukee is something I want to take a look at too.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely that little return home narrative there that I like.
Yep. All right. Other side here, Milwaukee batters going up against Tyler Anderson. Anderson has not had a good start to the season. Has an xFIP over 6. The K rate's just not there. The ground ball rate to lefties is respectable, but there should be plenty of righties loaded up in this lineup here. We should get 8 if Yelich is the only lefty starting. I think that's where they should set that up. So you're going to get probably a Brosio leadoff spot, Willy Adames up there, William Contreras, Brian Anderson. I mean, there are some lefty smashers in here.
Yeah, there certainly are some lefty smashers. I guess the problem for me is that they haven't been smashing lefties all that much to start out the year. Like Contreras has been good, right? But outside of that, you have a lot of these guys who have definitely been struggling against left-handed pitchers. Anderson hasn't been good, so this is definitely a get right type of spot. I'm just wondering if I really want to get that much exposure onto this team when you have Coors, you have the Rays, who I think are in a better spot, and then you have the Angels, which I think are in a better spot. I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth.
I would say I put the Rays over the Brewers. I would also think you can make arguments for the Dodgers later. And yeah, we'll get to some of these other spots too. I think the Reds are somewhat interesting. But yeah, I think that I would bump up the Angels a little bit too. I think that they have a really good shot of winning this game, and it all kind of just depends on which pitcher is actually on their game or not. And so far, neither of them have been. So could see a really high scoring game.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Take a look at props here. I would like to see, I know Rendon was off the board earlier, probably going to still be there. Yeah, he's not on there. But I do think that, at least some Angels that could make sense here outside of Mike Trout. I mean, I wish they could add a little bit more because it's kind of just Trout and Ohtani. I do like the Renfroe 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. Brandon Drury is the same thing on Prize Picks, so I don't mind either of those numbers.
Those two guys nailed it. Both of them 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. I like them both, so I can get behind the number.
Yeah, not super. Just I don't want to get baited into the Brosio spot. I know he's probably like min price on the DFS sites. I don't feel the best about that, but do you think it's a forced play?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you need to force it at all.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know. If you found a William Contreras number, I would be okay with that. But it doesn't look like we have anything there. Willy Adames, 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. Could be something you take a look at, but I'm not as excited about the Brewers. I think the other side's the better spot.
Yeah, I will say this game gets a lot more enticing if they open up the roof. We'll have to wait and see on that. But this ballpark gets a lot better once they open shit up.
For sure. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next game. It's going to be this Philadelphia and Houston matchup right now. The Phillies are going to come in as a plus 130 underdog behind Aaron Nola. Framber Valdez, Astros minus 154 at home. 7.5 is the total here. This is going to be just a really, I think in theory, low scoring game. Although I will say that Aaron Nola is very much like Shane Bieber in the fact that I just don't think that they've kind of really figured things out yet to start the year off. So where are you leaning with this game? It feels like it's stay away for DFS, but are there things we can look at?
I don't really like the Fromber spot, man. I mean, talk about consistency. He's been going deep in each of the last 4 games, gone 6 or more, 7 innings in 3 out of the last 4. He's getting strikeouts pretty consistently. This is a team in Philly that is solid against left-handed pitching, but their K rate is high, their walk rate is low. Means that Framber is going to get a lot of his ground ball outs that he likes to get. I could see Framber Valdez paying this spot off for you if you wanted to double pay up on DraftKings or if you wanted to pivot off of the DeGrom chalk. I like this Framber Valdez spot, man. I think it's solid.
Yeah, we also know that outside of the top of the lineup, this lineup definitely has strikeout upside in it. Outside of, again, like Bryson Stott, Trey Turner, but I do think that a lot of that makes sense. I guess the only guy I really worry about is Trey Turner, but again, I don't know if one guy can hurt you that much in the spot.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's really all I have there, and I don't think we should be taking bats necessarily against Aaron Nola. It kind of just feels like a stalemate, although he has been pretty bad. So ground ball rate doesn't really exist for him so far this year. The stuff against lefties is certainly just not there. He's going to get a few of them today, and two really dangerous lefties at that too. I mean, Kyle Tucker definitely has his number. He's written up in the BVP stuff today too. I don't know. I just think it kind of is a middling spot for the Astros.
Yeah, I would agree. Not really a spot that I would attack with Nola and everything. I think you just have better options elsewhere.
Yep. We should just at least take a look at the Framber stuff on PrizeFix. There's a 6.5 pitcher strikeout number. There is a 39 pitcher fantasy score. It feels high, but again, like you said, consistency has been there. And the quality start and win are very important for that spot.
Yeah, I would say that I'd probably be more willing to attack that pitcher strikeout number, if anything. Mostly because I don't think the win is necessarily in hand. So, yeah, that pitcher strikeout number is where I would lean.
Yeah, I mean, we could easily find ourselves in a spot where Valdez leaves the game with a, 2-1 loss. So we'll see how it goes, but that's going to be one of the games that I'm just not as interested in on the slate in general. So let's talk about the one that everybody's interested in hearing about in the Coors game. Diamondbacks Rockies is next. Diamondbacks are a -130 money line favorite on the road here behind Merrill Kelly. Kyle Freeland, Rockies +110 at home. 11 is the total here. The one thing getting in the way at all is the wind, and that's going to be blowing in 10 to 12 miles an hour here. Temperatures in the mid-50s. So let's go ahead and start with Arizona against this Kyle Freeland spot. There's a lot of guys that have seen him a lot, and a lot of those plate appearances have been in Coors. They should set up pretty well in this spot, so I'm curious to hear where you have them ranked.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely have to be top of the list. I think they're better than that Rocky stack at the end of the day. Freeland just hasn't had his stuff yet this season, and you can clearly see it. The ground ball rate is low, the fly ball rate's high, the hard contact is almost matching the fly ball rate at this point, and his xFIP is at 5.39, so he's not really striking out guys. So I want to get a lot of exposure here. I like this spot quite a bit. I think it all starts out with Ketel Marte at the top of this lineup. But I really like this Emmanuel Rivera spot as well. I know he hasn't had a lot of at-bats, but this is a guy I talked about a ton last year. I talked about how he was going to be one of those guys that's going to be a lefty smasher for years to come, and I think that this is a really good spot for him. I like the spot for Christian Walker, who's going to have a lot of power upside. Even Evan Longoria in the middle of the lineup seems like a solid option. So I like a lot of these guys against lefties, man. I think this lineup makes a lot of sense, and loading up on it makes a lot of sense. And luckily, you're not paying super ridiculous price tags, right? Like, you're not playing a lefty against Freeland because he's been pretty dominant against left-handed hitting. So Corbin Carroll gets taken out of things. Pavon Smith gets taken out of things. But you have Christian Walker at 3,400. You have Ketel Marte at 3,300. Longoria's 32. If you're willing to pay down for Emmanuel Rivera, he's at 2,400 on FanDuel. These price tags are ridiculously cheap for a core spot. And while the weather isn't great for the spot necessarily, I think the matchup is just too good to ignore.
Yep, agreed there. I'm very curious to see, you already alluded to it, should see Emmanuel Rivera high in the lineup here, or at least top 5.
Should see him 2-hole, most likely.
Okay. Obviously, if we get a competent coach lineup, we'll see how that goes. But I like a lot of this. I think Ketel Marte is, if not the best bat on the slate, at least the top second baseman on the slate. And really like what Evan Longoria brings to the table too. So a lot of those guys. I would say 3 is probably where you want this on DFS. Can you make a case for 4? It feels like you're extending a little bit on this slate?
I think you're fine for 4. I think you can mini stack out the rest of your lineup. You shouldn't be, you should have like this as your main stack, and then like in cash
Yeah.
games at the very least, this should be your main stack, and then you go from there.
Right. Okay. We'll talk about props here once we finish talking about the Rockies for DFS. Other side, Merrill Kelly 5.09 xFIP. The strikeout rate's 23%. The walk rate's a little bit concerning with the against right-handed batters. I think he hasn't really figured that out quite yet. It's kind of alarmingly high. So I'll kind of ask you about that here momentarily. But the ground ball rate, stuff against lefties is pretty competent. It does feel like he's a little bit reverse splits tendency to start the year off. Why is he struggling so much against righties?
He did last year too, man. I mean, this has kind of just always been his thing where he struggles against right-handed pitching. It's mostly because of that sinker, which is just not a very good pitch for him, but he throws it a lot against right-handed hitters. So like if he continues to do that, he's going to continue to struggle. And I think this is a spot that is going to be sneaky good. And by sneaky good, I mean, I don't really like a lot of these lefties on the Rockies. I could see them getting some ownership to guys like Profar and Blackman and McMahon, but the righties is what you want to focus on here. Chris Bryant, CJ Crone, even Elias Diaz, and maybe some of the guys at the bottom of the lineup. But mainly, if you can get one of Crone or Bryant is the way I would go. The reason I say one is because I think they're getting both of them is probably too expensive for the build today with DeGrom, but getting one of them is definitely doable.
Yeah, I mean, CJ Cron's price has gone down quite a bit from where it was a couple weeks ago. So
Yeah.
maybe there's something you can do there to prioritize the first base spot. But yeah, I think that will be different. I think people will just play platoon because they won't do their research on a slate like this. So who knows? It could work out for you. But where would you stop in terms of like how many players would you play for this game? 6?
I would probably play at most 6. Most likely you're going 5, though, and you're playing a one-off of that Colorado team. I don't want to overload on the Rocky side. It's a lot less interesting. I mean, Merrill Kelly, I think, is just a better pitcher overall than what Kyle Freeland brings to the table.
Right, yeah, definitely agree there. Prop time. Christian Walker has an 8.5 hitter fantasy score. Emmanuel Rivera, again, if he's up in the 2-hole like we think he will be, 1.5 total bases is definitely doable. Longoria, same thing, a total base number. Ketel Marte is where things get more interesting. I've had this talk over the past couple hours debating whether or not we should focus on a hitter fantasy number, or if you want the hits, runs, RBI stuff. I would lean with the fantasy number. You're already getting him. He's not leadoff, but you're going to, maybe he will be today, but you're getting him at the top of the order on the road. In that environment, I think we get 5-6 plate appearances for Ketel Marte. So I'll take the risk on hopefully, trying to gather into those walks is important today, I think.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I don't mind going hitter fantasy score. I think 2.5 hits, runs, RBIs is just fine too, though. I don't mind either spot. Really like the Rivera 1.5 total bases. Really like the Longoria 1.5 total bases, and even the Christian Walker 8.5 hitter fantasy score works out for me.
Yeah, Rocky's side of things, you're going to get a spot where hopefully we can actually look at some stuff. Let's see. Righties, CJ Crone, 7.5. Diaz has a 1.5 HRR. I like that. Chris Bryant only has an 8 number. Still like that, though. I think that those are all fine for this matchup. But again, I think when you're playing the Rockies, you shouldn't be getting like too overinvested in this. Maybe take one of them in a 5 flex. Like I wouldn't go more than 1.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because at that point you're just kind of overexposing yourself and hoping for a good variance spot, which again it could be. But yeah, that's kind of where I would take that. All right, though, let's go ahead and move on. We got a couple more games to talk about, 2 to be exact. Right now, this next game is going to come in at 9:40 Eastern. We're going to be talking about the Cincinnati Reds and the Oakland Athletics. Right now, the Reds are coming in as a -108. Road, I wouldn't say it's pretty much even on both sides. So Sessa for the Reds, Muller for the A's. 8.5 is the total here for the weather. 66 degrees at Oakland Coliseum. Wind is blowing out towards the right, 9-10 miles an hour. First thing I haven't been dialed in for the last 2 days of NBA, so forgive me. I know you're only focusing on your Lakers, but I want to get this thing settled before we start talking about it. Okay, this is a home game tonight. for the Warriors. Just letting everybody know that. So if you
Gotcha.
thought the game was going to have nobody at it before, now there's only going to be nobody at it today.
Yeah, seriously. Are you sure? Is it definitely Mueller for the Athletics?
That's what I'm seeing. Is there a different pitcher
I
you're seeing?
know that they have Drew Rusinski. I don't know if he's making his start today, but he's making his start
Okay.
sometime over the weekend. I know that for sure.
Expected to be activated this weekend.
Yeah, I know. I know he's making a start sometime. I just don't have a defined starter for this one. Is the only thing. I guess
FanDuel Sportsbook has Mueller. I'm looking at MLB probables right now.
Yeah, that's probably the best place to look is probables and see there.
That does change the red spot. It gets better if that's the case.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about Rusinski.
I mean, let's see. By the way, the Tigers game got postponed.
Mm-hmm. I saw that.
MLB probables has TBD, so I will.
So it could be Rusinski, it could be Mueller. I think there's a lot of guys in the rotation that could potentially go here. I would say wait and see. If you have a left here's how we'll do it. We'll go lefty and righty because I think that's most likely what you're going to be basing things off of here. If you get a lefty like Mueller, I think India, Stevenson, those types of guys, probably only those two guys, maybe Steer as well, would be potential options. If you get Rusinski, you like Jake Fraley a lot more. I think TJ Frito at the top of the lineup would make a lot of sense. There's just a lot of unknown here. And you're also in Oakland, so like it's not a great hitter's park at all.
Right.
There's not a lot of interest for me in the Cincinnati team. Even knowing how bad Oakland is, I think it's hard to get really interested in Cincinnati on such a large slate.
If we had a clear, defined starting pitcher, I could make cases to be more interested.
Yeah.
But again, I will say I like the Reds over the Guardians. I like the Reds over the Blue Jays. Where I stop and struggle is like I don't think you can take them over the Brewers or the Rays. And we still have to talk about the Dodgers.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, okay. Other side, I mean, Cessa's just as bad. Are we relying on Oakland on a big slate like this?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm fine with potentially just staying away from this game. I think you have two teams that aren't very good hitting teams, and while the pitching isn't great either, I'll rely on the ballpark more than anything else.
Yep, agreed. I mean, it would be a fun giveaway to guess the attendance number of this game.
That would be fun.
It will be very low.
Yeah.
Anyway, though, let's move on and talk about the last game. I don't think we should be focused on any props because we can't really give out plays if we don't know who the Oakland pitcher is.
Yeah, and you don't even have much props on the board because I think the books are in the same spot as us where they don't know who's going to be pitching today.
Right. Okay. Cardinals and Dodgers is the last game on the slate. Right now, the St. Louis Cardinals are coming in as a plus 116 money line underdog behind Jack Flaherty. Dustin May on the Dodgers side, a minus 136 home favorite. 8.5 is the total for this game. And not only that, it's going to be 67 degrees. The wind's going to be blowing out towards left center at 10 miles an hour. Good hitting weather. So let's go ahead and start talking about this one. We'll start with the Cardinals hitters going up against Dustin May. There's not much that I want to discuss here, but we should at least cover the May spot because he has kind of not lived up to expectation and hype so far. 5.13 xFIP to start the year, 16% K rate. Swinging strike rate is an abysmal 6.8%. That's a lot lower than I thought it was. And the hard contact given up to lefties is pretty atrocious at 50%. That is to 68 plate appearances too. One thing he does have going for him is the ground ball rate. So that could save him today. But if this ball is elevated and hit hard, I could see this being a big spot for these lefties at St. Louis.
Just screams Nolan Gorman, right? Low ground ball rate, lots of hard contact, lots of K he strikes out a lot, but Dustin May doesn't seem to have the K stuff down so far this year. So I really like that Nolan Gorman spot. I think that's probably my favorite one off from this team. But that's about it. I don't think you can get into all much more than that.
Yeah. I don't think we get Tommy Edman at the top of the lineup too, but he's had a lot of stolen base opportunities lately. So I don't know. Just kind of have to wait and see on that. Don't fall into the trap of Lars Nootbaar. I think that ground ball rate's too scary.
Yeah, I would agree.
Other side, spot where I want to take a harder look at is this Dodgers team. Jack Flaherty, 5.49 xFIP to start the season, 23% K rate. He's giving up hard contact to both handedness around 45%. But the main thing here is like the ISO to lefties is 0.25 over a pretty good sample. So and the walk rate's pretty atrocious. I know he's been struggling with that recently. Lefty Dodgers sounds like a Freddie Freeman spot.
Sounds like a Freddie Freeman spot. Sounds like a Max Muncy spot, coming off of the birth of his child, too. The little fatherhood game here. James Outman, Jason Hayward, like all the lefties here get into some of the best spots that you could possibly get into against Flaherty and against the St. Louis bullpen that has not lived up to expectations. It's a great pivot spot. I think it is a great spot to get off some of the chalkier stacks of the day. I think they are going to be super expensive, though. So to find that salary is going to be a real difficulty on today's slate. But there's certainly some upside here. And, this Dodger Stadium is definitely sneaky in terms of the home run upside here. I don't think a lot of people realize just how easy it is to hit a home run in Dodger Stadium. So with that factored in, too, I like these lefties a lot. And I think they're up there with the Rays for me in terms of stacks on the day.
Yep. And the wind blowing out too is just phenomenal. So
for sure.
Yeah, I really like Freddie Freeman. Excuse me. Really like Freddie Freeman's hitter fantasy score number. With as high as the walk rate has been for Flaherty, you need that extra bump in there.
I would
really
agree.
probably should be 8.5 on the fantasy score stuff. So take it to where it is right now. You might have to wait a little bit longer, considering this game is like 6 hours away. Maybe they put a Max Muncy prop up there, and I'd feel pretty good about that too. I guess the only thing I would be a little bit more scared about, like David Peralta probably has some pinch hit risk. Maybe even Jason Hayward too. Do they have to play Hayward right now? Is that a thing they have to do?
I think it is. Maybe. I don't know. I think they just want more lefty bats in the lineup, most likely. Like, they rather have him over Trace Thompson. They rather have him over Chris Taylor. I think having a lefty in there just makes more sense.
Yeah. Am I crazy for? Probably am. I think I'm missing this by a team. I thought that Jason Hayward maybe played a year in St. Louis, but I think
He did.
Did
It
he?
was between Atlanta. Funny thing, I looked at the same exact thing because I was thinking he played here, didn't he? Yeah, he played here a season. It was between his Atlanta and his Cubs stints.
Got it. So it was before the Cubs stint. Okay.
Yes, it was. I thought it was afterwards, but it was before. And he hit pretty well there. I'm not sure exactly. I would have to go look and see what happened in terms of why he ended up leaving. But a little bit of revenge narrative at the very least.
Sure, absolutely. So again, I think that the main thing that I'm interested in is Freddie Freeman. I like James Outman a lot. If they put Max Muncy on the board, then I like that as well. But yeah, the Dodgers are a sneaky team, and I think you can put them over. I don't know about the Rays, but I think you can put them close to over the Brewers and Angels game.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right. I don't have much for final thoughts here. We kind of covered everything in depth. Did so pretty quickly too. So it's kind of a spot where you have a slate where there's just there's a lot of weeds that you just have to kill and sort out. And I think that we're going to do that here. We should also see the Atlanta and New York Mets game postponed soon. So there's that. And I just think that there are, 3-4 games that really matter on the slate, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, I will say that like the biggest prohibitor of the biggest roadblock in getting a win today is the fact of figuring out who your SP2 is going to be that really fits with all the bats that you really love today, because there are so many bats that we love, or not so many, but so many spots that I'm bullish on. I kind of am flirting with the idea of just pitching DeGrom and Schmidt and hoping for a really low scoring game. Like, Schmidt's been too good to be priced all the way down at 6,200 on FanDuel. The stuff has been really solid. And so I could see Clark Schmidt being a guy you go to. But if you're not going to Schmidt, the rest of these guys down here are pretty bad. So you're looking at double pay up options after that. And that's a tough conversation to have, because we kind of ruled out a few of them, right? We ruled out Eflin. We don't really like Shane Bieber. We don't like Nola. That leaves you with the top three in Valdez, Castillo, and DeGrom, who you're most likely already pitching. It's an expensive way to go. So it's either you're going to find those value bats that really make your lineup complete, or you're going to have to go with a really cheap kind of punt type of option at your pitcher position.
Yeah. I would lean with going Valdez as your SP2 as of right now.
I would too. It's just contributing 2,100 to your pitcher position. Here, we'll build with the
I
team
get it.
here.
You're gonna need Emmanuel Rivera today. That is a must.
Yes.
Is he super cheap, and you're probably gonna have to punt catcher. And from there, I mean, you might have to make a sacrifice or two in order to get there, and that could mean fading a Rockies player that you could need.
Yeah, 100. It definitely could result in something like that. It could result in you not playing Rays and instead playing. I mean, here, let's see some of these Dodger price tags. Not
Like
necessarily
Brosio, right?
Brosio, yeah, for sure.
Well,
I'm
you
looking.
can't because that's Emmanuel Rivera's position, but you get my drift.
Yeah, definitely. Altman's at 41. I mean, like, not a lot of these price tags are all that great either. So Jason Hayward might be someone where if he's high up in the lineup, you can take him at a cheap price tag. David Peralta too. You're going to have to find some ways to get some cheap hitters in your lineup to make things work on DraftKings and on FanDuel too. You know, the same is to be said because you're paying $3K for a bunch of these guys. And even after you put in DeGrom, you only have 2,900 left over. So if you fill in the Arizona stack that we're talking about, you're still not left with a whole bunch of money. So it's just about finding the right hitters to go around DeGrom is the main way to get a win today on both DFS sites. And definitely makes props a little bit easier for today, in all honesty.
Sure.
You know, some days it feels like a DFS day. Some days it feels like a prop day. Today certainly feels like a prop day.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so I just want to end the show by saying thank you for everybody that is tuning in right now. We're here Monday through Friday. I'm back from vacation, so we're actually able to stream on a more consistent basis. So that's nice to see there. We haven't talked about NBA today. We're not really going to, but I want to end the show by saying that our friends at Sleeper Picks have a promotion today. While it's not necessarily Flex Friday over there, they are giving a pick on sale today, which is going to be Draymond Green. He is in that obviously really, really interesting Game 6 against the Kings tonight. They have him discounted all the way down to a 0.5 points line. Now I know with Draymond Green, that's always even more questionable than the others. But they do have that. Basically, it says 95% off. You need him to score one basket or get 1 point tonight. You can use the code RADAR to get a $100 deposit match bonus if you're able to play. And I'm going to post a link in the comments here. So you can use any of the other things if you don't have props that you like. For example, Anthony Rendon is a guy that I really want to play, but he's not on Prize Picks or Underdog right now, and that's where I'm going to get my exposure to him today. Maybe we'll throw up a Sleeper Picks couple plays there on the for the All Access team tonight. But yeah, just wanted to quick shout them out. They basically have more prop plays than any site out there. So again, if you want to get the Draymond Green stuff and get exposure to two sports, you can go ahead and do that there.
Yep, for sure. Love it. All right, let's get out of here, man. Any other final thoughts? If not, we will dip here.
No, it's an awesome Friday slate, and I think a lot of people will take a lot of risks and stretches. So let's go ahead and take this one down.
Yes, sir. Exactly. All right. Thank you all for listening. As always, my name is Joshua Riemer. Good night and good skill.